Hi, nice to meet you, sir. My name is Jonathan Marroquin. How are you doing?
Good, how are you? My name is Brian Marroquin.
Good to hear.
Okay, so first question. Can you describe a time when you made a critical mistake at work and how did you rectify it?
Sure. So I'm sure you saw by my resume that I worked at Phaedrus Barbecue in Spring Branch. And in the barbecue industry, we have to make sure that we cook the proteins a day prior because they have to rest in a warming oven throughout the night. And at the end of my shift at night, I failed to make sure that the warming ovens were on, and I still put the proteins in there anyways. Little did I know that the breakers had checked, and there was no electricity in that part of the restaurant, so there was no way for those ovens to be on. But I realized like at 2 or 3 in the morning that I didn't make sure that the ovens were on, so I called my boss in the middle of the night, even though I knew that he was going to be pretty upset with me, to make sure that I could get that taken care of. And he allowed me to go in the middle of the night, make sure that everything was good, and I was able to turn the ovens on and make sure that the food was still within the proper temperature range to be served the next day.
Okay. How do you ensure safety in your work area?
Sure. So I always try to make sure that I leave my personal problems at the door whenever I'm going to work, because I know that if I don't do that, I won't have a clear state of mind throughout the workday. And not only will that put me in danger, but that means that I might put everybody else at work in danger as well if I'm not doing my best at work. Also, I would say that I always try to make sure that I'm using the proper PPE, depending on where I'm at in the unit, wherever I'm working, whether it's in the kitchen or at the shop. I make sure that I'm wearing the proper equipment to maintain safety. I don't want to have any accidents in any workplace or even at home. I also try to practice good housekeeping, make sure that my area is always clean, because in this line of work, if your area isn't clean, that's a pretty big hazard. Right? You can slip, fall, and if you're not wearing the appropriate PPE, or if anybody else isn't wearing the appropriate PPE because of my mistakes and me not tending to the housekeeping, they might get injured.
Correct. Can you discuss a time when your communication skills led to success?
Yeah, sure. So at Elite Truck Repair, we do hazmat cargo tank inspections, and our criteria is any tank that goes into the shop should always be clean, and they have to have a certification that they went through a tank wash and that there's no chemical or any residue inside of the tank by the time that they enter the shop. One time we had a tank that we had to go inside and do a repair on it, and though that isn't my job to do the actual repair, it is my job to do the inspection. So before I allowed my colleague to go inside the tank and facilitate the repair, I made sure that I did my due diligence and did all the inspections. I did the visual external and the visual internal, and whenever I did open up the tank, I realized that it wasn't properly washed, and the driver actually never gave us their note that they went to the tank wash. So I had to make sure that I notified our technician that that tank still had residue inside and that he couldn't go in there. If he would have gone in there without me doing that inspection, it would have put him in danger. And if he was doing that well job inside and there was still any residue of whatever chemical it may have been, because we're not aware of what they carry, there could have been an explosion, or he could have fainted in there. That would have been my problem. So my communication with our technician helped put him in safer hands, and also communicating with the driver that the tank wasn't washed allowed him to be aware of their mistake. and make sure that they tend to that before they bring us a unit.
Okay. More of a personal question. How do you live your personal life, and how would you like to be treated in the workplace?
Sure. So I would say that my golden rule is do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. So I always try to treat other people with respect, because they've never done anything to me to lack any respect from me. And you never know what anybody else is going through in their personal life. So there's no reason for me to be ignorant and be a bad person towards them. I always try to be good and nice to people, even if I don't know them, right? Like I said, you never know what they're going through, and you may be their smile for the day. So I always try to be like that. I always try to make sure that I'm the reason that they smile that day. And that's how I would like people to treat me. So that's my golden rule.
That's very nice. How do you prioritize your workload?
Sure. So I always try to focus on the task at hand before I move on to anything else. If my supervisor or my boss ever tells me, "Hey, you need to get this done before the end of the day," and I'm currently already working on something, I try to finish that before skipping through other things. I never like to skip through different things all at once, because I feel like I'm not getting anything finished. I'd rather finish one task, move on to the other, finish that one, and so on, right? I feel like I'm more efficient that way, and that way I don't leave anything behind. I make sure that everything is done correctly, and I don't leave anything executed poorly.
Very nice. And do you have your certification in central and mobile AC units?
Yes, I actually do. I received my MAX certification in 2018, and as a matter of fact, I did a refresher course here this past week at Houston Freightliner for the MAX certification as well. And though it's not a renewal, it was just a refresher for me, because you never know if there may be new practices. And actually, there was a new rule change. They actually taught us about the new refrigerant that is going to be in place in the following years. I believe it's 1234YF that's going to be put in place. And so it was nice to get out there and be sure that I'm up to date with all these standards.
Oh, very nice. And have you ever been tasked with leading a project, and can you discuss your experience and the results?
Yeah, so at Fetus Barbecue, we had two lead pitmasters. It was the owner, Patrick Fetus, of the restaurant, and my buddy, Zach Cook. There was one time where Mr. Fetus, he couldn't be at the restaurant. He had to tend to some family matters, and Zach Cook had already gotten his vacation days approved. So he was out of town, and Patrick put me in charge of the pit room. He made me head pitmaster for those 2 weeks, and it was really fun to do so, because I had the opportunity to have that leader role, which I hadn't had previously at that restaurant. And so it allowed me to practice my leadership and know how to tend to some emergencies that those lead roles have to tend to, that not everybody else has to partake in throughout the workday.
Wow, that's very cool. Okay, final question. Why did you choose Centrio?
Yeah, so Centro Energy, I've noticed Centrio has had a 99.99% operational reliability in the past, I think it was 8 years. And what that means to me is 99.99% of the time, the plant is in operation, which means there's no setbacks or any safety issues going on to where they have to shut off the units at the plant. So to me, at the end of the day, my main focus is safety. I want to be able to go to work and not have to think about it as a hazard. I want to go to work and be able to go back home. So Centrio to me seemed like a very safe place to work, and that's my main focus.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.